I'm going to tie Charlie Craven's Charlie Boy hopper, and I'm starting off with a size 8 hopper hook in the vise. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've cut a yellow strip of foam, and this is just craft foam, and I'm going to impale it towards the back of the hook. So however far out you want the tail to go, that's how far in you want to impale it. And the idea in the length of the foam that you cut is you're going to be doubling this over. So I've cut a little bit too much, but you just want to make sure that you have enough to be able to cover and so that you can have the two ends join. So I'll put this back in the vise. And we'll revisit that here in a bit. I'm going to start adding thread to this, and I'm going to use a 6/0, and this is a yellow thread to keep everything in that yellow color family. So I'll just give a couple of turns and then go ahead and trim the end. I'm going to use Zap-A-Gap in this pattern, so just want to take a scrap piece of foam and tie it into the hook shank, and the reason for that is you'd want as much surface area to contact as possible just to help everything stay put. So I'll just wrap in. It just so happens I have green lying around. So I'll just tie it in. Alright, now I'm going to leave my thread in the back of the bend of the hook there. I'm going to measure my foam out, and what I want to do here is put a hole in the foam so that it can pass through. So I'll just use my scissors and put a hole in there so that I can begin to work my thread through here. Alright, so now I'm going to take my Zap-A-Gap and I'm just going to apply it to the back of the pattern. So over that foam that we tied in. And now all I want to do is just bend that foam in half. And it'll take just a bit for it to set up. If you don't have Zap-A-Gap, you can use just regular Crazy Glue. And I'm going to start by putting in one turn here, and I'll help this on its way. And while that's drying, then I can come in and just trim my end to length. Alright, so it looks like that is dry. So now I'll start to make my segments, and I'm going to make 4 segments up the body, and when I do, I'm going to turn and just do an angled wrap on the top and then pull down. Angled wrap on top and pull down, angled wrap on top and pull down. So you get nice even segments there to the body, and leaving enough then for the head. I can come back with a razor blade, and I'm just going to take a level cut here off the back to give it its shape. And then I'll put just a little bit of a taper to this. Alright, and now I can tie in my legs. The legs that I'm going to use are just round rubber legs, and so I'll cut a strip off, and I want to take my thread back one segment to tie it in. So I'll just hold it on the side, take a wrap through. Trim the length and do the same thing to the other side. and then I can retrace the wraps that I made before, and now I can tie in the front with a couple of wraps. I'll just do a rough trim of the legs here. And now you can start to position these the way you'd like them. And while I have it here, I'm going to put some eyes on this pattern. So I'm just going to put, with a Sharpie, just an eye on either side. And now the final piece is adding the wing to it. So I'm just going to use a natural deer hair for this. And I'm going to pull off a section. It's maybe a pencil and a half in width. Trim it off the hide. I'm going to want to clean up any underfur, so all I use is just a barber's comb here and just take a couple of strips through. And I'll put it into my stacker. Give it a couple of taps, and when I pull out, all the tips should be aligned, so I'll go ahead and just knock off any additional loose pieces in the back. And now I can measure this out against the body, and I want it to land maybe just past that last segment. So I'll take my cut, for the head, hold it on, take 2 wraps through, and pull everything tight. If you want to do any trimming, you can. And then anytime I put a head on like this, I always like to take some wraps through the actual butt sections. So I'll take a couple of wraps through there, and now I can just add in my whip finishes, and I'll do the same thing. If you have a bigger whip finish, now's a good time to use it. So just put a couple of wraps through there, pull it straight down, and then I can trim off the excess thread. If you want to do any additional shaping, I tend to mess with this probably more than I should. But I'll just shape the head and situate the legs how you want, trim them to the length that you're going for. And then one thing that I'll do is I'll put just a drop of head cement on the joints where I tied in the rubber legs. So I'll just put a drop on each side. And that's it. Really like this hopper pattern. This is probably the one I fish the most. A lot of good patterns come by the way of Charlie Craven. So that is Charlie Craven's Charlie Boy Hopper.